Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So many of you asked me to make a video about Mosab Hassan Yousef. You might have seen him on multiple TV networks and online, promoting Israeli propaganda and saying things about the Palestinian resistance movements, primarily Hamas. So what's the deal with him? What's his background? Who is he really? Was he really a member of Hamas? And what was his father's position in all of this? Well, firstly, he's the son of Hassan Yousef, Sheikh Hassan Yousef. Sheikh Hassan Yousef was born in Ramallah in 1955, and he was an active member of Hamas and part of its legislative council. Unlike what his son says, he wasn't the leader nor the founder of Hamas. So he sells himself by saying, "My father was the founder." That's one of the biggest lies he reiterates. And I'm not gonna go into every single claim he makes. There is no time to continuously repeat, Zionist lies. There is no point. But I'm gonna talk about the individual himself, the main highlights, main basis he speaks upon, and debunk the things that he promotes and speaks about. And they're related primarily to his actual character and his actual position. So his father, that's number one. He wasn't the leader nor the founder of Hamas. Another thing this guy says is that, or Israel repeats, that he went undercover with them from 1997 up until 2007. And there's a big problem with this claim as well. Why? Because in 1996, 1 year before he reportedly went undercover working for Israel and basically spying on Hamas or whatever, Hamas warned its members from him because he reportedly met with intelligence agencies in 1996 and there were massive question marks surrounding him. His father confirmed that he was never an active member of Hamas. He was never an active member. That's another thing. So if Israel is saying that he went undercover with them from 2006 to 2007, and Hamas is saying he was never a member and they warned about him, and his father, who was a key figure in Hamas, is saying that, where is this coming from? What kind of things are you trying to say here? It's a blatant lie. Secondly, his father, after he apparently in the beginning he was undercover and he wasn't saying much, and then he went to America. Apparently he's in San Diego or in some undisclosed place in America now, saying all of these things and being invited to universities. Big networks speak to him in America and across the world. He apparently changed his religion in 1999 and declared it only 9 years later. That's another thing. Now, what's his key position at the moment? What is he doing? So now that we've uncovered his actual background, he was never a member of Hamas. His father wasn't the founder of Hamas, and he never went undercover. What is he exactly? Well, he is a Hasbara, quite a dysfunctional Hasbara tool for Israel. What is Israeli Hasbara? Hasbara means in Hebrew explanation, but it's commonly referred as the propaganda arm of Israel. So you will see many organizations or fronts, whether in the media, whether personalities, who work for Israeli Hasbara, whether directly or indirectly. They support media groups, they support people, companies. In America, for example, you have the Daily Wire. AIPAC, although it's a lobby group, but it's also part of the Hasbara because they're intertwined together. They all form this Zionist network to publish Israeli propaganda and say negative stuff about the Palestinian people and delegitimize the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian resistance, etc. Now, one of the biggest lies this man reiterates, because I said from the beginning of this war, Hamas is being used as a tool, as a front against all of the Palestinian people. So from the beginning, number one, we didn't buy the narrative that the mainstream media tried to sell us about the 7th of October attacks, and many facts were revealed later on. Secondly, people were saying Hamas this, Hamas that, just as a front against the Palestinian people. Their aim was the Palestinian people, genocide, ethnic cleansing. Their aim is not Hamas. Why? Because their plans for Gaza that they tried and are still trying to implement to this day have existed from 50 years. As a matter of fact, after the Egyptian war in 1973, Israeli leadership back then offered Gaza to Egypt. They told them, take Gaza from us, we don't want it. And the Egyptians rejected, because to them, this meant the annihilation of the Palestinian cause. So there's a plan. Hamas wasn't there in 1973. As a matter of fact, and in case you haven't heard this, I'll repeat it again. Hamas is a symptom to a disease. The disease is the injustice, the oppression, the genocide, the ethnic cleansing, the ongoing occupation of Zionism, of Zionist Israel. That's the main virus, okay? Hamas is a symptom. If Hamas went and there was someone else, that's a symptom. And if you go to a doctor who knows what he's doing and you have a virus, he wouldn't just be dealing with your symptoms. He would try to deal with the root cause of the problem, the virus or whatever it is that you have that's causing the symptoms. Then he repeats one of the biggest themes. Obviously, they love to play on this. They love to play on the Jewish narrative. They love to play on the anti-Semitic stick. They'll bash you with it every time you make a word against Israel. Anti-Semitism has been weaponized since the creation of the State of Israel, deliberately. Although Israel has nothing to do with Semitism and has nothing to do with Judaism as a religion. Yes, they might be, most of them, Jews running the country, but at the end of the day, you can't relate Judaism to what Israel does as a state. The problem is not with Judaism as a religion. The problem is with oppressive occupying Zionism. And this leads us to what this guy reiterates constantly, that Hamas want to take down all of the Jewish people. They like to say that about not just Hamas, note, they like to say that about everything pro-Palestinian. The protests we see in London, in America, all across the globe, anti-Semitism this, anti-Semitism that, despite the fact that you have Orthodox Jews, secular Jews, Jews from all walks of life joining these protests, and some of them even having protests on their own in America, in the United Kingdom, and other parts of the world, and showing support for the Palestinian cause and speaking against Zionism and Israel's actions. So he says they want to demolish them. So let's try and find if that's actually clear. I went to the charter of Hamas. Let's read it, see exactly what it says when it comes to Judaism. They make in their charter a clear distinction between Judaism and Zionism. As a matter of fact, clause 16 of their charter states, quote, Hamas asserts that the conflict with the Zionist project is not a conflict with the Jews because of their religion. Hamas is not waging a struggle against the Jews because they are Jews, but rather waging a struggle against the aggressors, the occupying Zionists. Note, before I continue the rest of this clause, the aggressors, the occupying Zionists. As if to say they probably don't have a problem with Zionism as long as it doesn't occupy and commit aggression and oppression. They continue, while the occupation leaders are the ones who use the slogans of Jews and Judaism in the conflict and describe their usurping entity with them. That's section 16 of their charter. Section 17 continues, quote, Hamas rejects the persecution of any person or the abridgment of his rights on a national, religious, or sectarian basis and believes that anti-Semitism and the persecution of Jews are phenomena that are essentially linked to European history and not to the history of Arabs and Muslims or their inheritances. The Zionist movement, which was able to occupy Palestine under the auspices of Western powers, is the most dangerous example of settler occupation, which has been removed from most parts of the world and which must be removed from Palestine. This is what Hamas say. So if you want to come and tell me the opposite of that, when this is a core belief that they actually state, why are you deliberately repeating lies? And it's not just him. It's mainstream media. It's people who are very popular. You probably heard many of them. And this debunks the whole narrative that these people constantly reiterate, and the actions that we saw from the 7th of October, the witness statements of Israeli hostages and people who survived 7th of October clearly state that people were not targeting them as civilians. As a matter of fact, they reassured them, they treated them kindly. That's why Israel stopped allowing them from speaking to mainstream media and having press conferences similar to the press conference that Yocheved Lifshitz did after she was released on a humanitarian basis, again, after Israel did not want to accept it. But the Palestinian resistance, Hamas, they insisted on releasing her for humanitarian purposes. She was eventually released to Egypt, and from there, she was taken to Israel. She had a press conference. We spoke about it in much detail previously. Some of the highlights that she reiterated, that they were kind, they reassured them, they took care of them. And many of the footages that we published about the videos and images of hostages being released from Hamas and other resistance movements, we saw their expressions, we saw what they said directly. These things don't lie, but that's why they don't show it to you, because if you do see them, you are able to establish a true understanding of what Palestinians are about and how the Palestinian resistance actually acts, which is completely in opposite to the mainstream narrative that tries to constantly demonize them and show them in a very bad manner, although all of these atrocities that these people supposedly speak up against are being committed in broad daylight by criminal Zionist Israel and its crimes against humanity and genocide in Gaza. So these are some of the main things that this guy reiterates, and I hope I gave you a bit of a background about him. He's clearly not a genuine person. As a matter of fact, I don't even like talking about these people, but following several people's requests, I decided to do a video. He's basically a dysfunctional tool in the rusty Hasbara toolbox, and he will never be able to be successful in hiding Israeli crimes.